Today, our guest is Mark Thompson. Mark, welcome. Mark is the
Hello.
creator behind the YouTube channel Sauce Stache, published author of Making Vegan Meat, a vegan cookbook. Although not a trained chef, Mark's work combines equal parts classic technique, engaging banter, and molecular gastronomy to charm viewers and challenge them to cook outside of their comfort zone. And so vegan and vegetarian food doesn't have to be so boring, thanks to Mark. So Mark, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was a great intro too.
Yeah, of course. We of course did our research on you. So let's take it back to the basics. When and why did you start your YouTube channel?
So I started in, I think it was mid 2016. And originally, so I started doing it because I've always enjoyed being creative. Before the YouTube channel, I developed an app for the App Store, for the iPhone. I love trying new things, like entrepreneurial things, and YouTube was really intriguing to me. Before my wife and I got married, before we were dating, we both worked in the same company when we first met, and she started a yoga blog, and she ended up quitting her job and doing the yoga blog full time. And to me, that was like, it blew my mind because I was like, oh my gosh, you can make a living from this blog. And so that's really how we started really connecting, because I was like chatting with her about her yoga blog and like how she
Mhm.
was doing this. And she suggested early on, when we first started dating, that maybe I could do a blog about sauce recipes, because, I'd cook her dinner and every dinner would have some fun sauce. And at the time, I was really into just YouTube, like, studying YouTube. And Casey Neistat was starting his daily vlog, and for me that was
Mhm.
really inspiring. So I thought, instead of doing a blog, I would do a YouTube channel based on sauce recipes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Sauce recipes. What was the first recipe that you came out with?
I think it was if I remember, I'm almost 100% certain it was a vegan spicy chipotle, like chipotle sauce. Um,
That sounds
like a
good.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, all of the recipes were really quick. They were, the idea in my head was 30-second, just overhead. It was just my hands making, I think they call it hands and pans, where it's just, that's all you see is the hands and the cooking.
Mhm.
30-second sauce recipes, and I would just put out like one every couple days, and it would just be every kind of sauce you can think of, just any sauce. It wasn't the main recipe. It was just, the accompaniment, the condiment. And I did that for a little bit. It was
Mhm.
maybe about 6 months before I realized that I don't think people are really interested in just sauce recipes.
Yeah.
But it was a fun way to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you're passionate about and that you,
Yeah.
you turned it into this long-term project. And so I think that's amazing. And so with creators just starting out, you've done this since 2016. Are there certain platforms that you recommend for first-time starters? And what's your personal go-to platform aside from YouTube?
I recommend YouTube to everybody. I do think YouTube is, um, they've always treated creators really great, in my opinion.
Mhm.
As far as, just monetization, I believe, like, the fairness of the algorithm. As far as floating new creators to the top, and being able to find, and like their search is probably one of the best out of any platform. I always recommend YouTube. I think YouTube is 100% a long haul investment for creators. Like, you can't just start YouTube and try it for a couple of months and see what happens. It's going to be a long-term investment, as far as, creating content and trying to grow a large platform. Outside of that, I think Instagram is a great place to go. um, I've personally love Instagram. I know a lot of people say TikTok. I've never really been a huge fan of the TikTok algorithm.
Mhm.
um, but I say Instagram is, that would be my second home. I
Gotcha.
think those are both really great places where a new creator can grow and thrive, may earn a living, and develop an audience, which is really the key to all of this. Like, actually create a community. I think those are
Mhm.
two places where communities can be created pretty well.
Well, you mentioned community and then you mentioned Instagram and then YouTube. I find that a lot of creators are actually a little bit more personable through their Instagram and
Yeah.
then they post their longer form of content on YouTube. Would you say that's the case for you?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, like my Instagram really is kind of like just my personal platform. It's where I'm
Hmm.
a lot more comfortable posting just like my daily life, just like fun little things. I just shared a thing about like Monica and I going to bingo. It's not something that I probably would
Hmm.
have posted, or there's really not a place to post that on YouTube. And I think that's
Hmm.
why I like Instagram because with Instagram you can post your recipes or your how-to videos or whatever content you want to make. My buddy makes comedy, but then you can also share your whatever you want, the personal side, which really develops a connection. On YouTube, the connection is through the comments section, so it's just a different way to connect with your audience. But I do think that your audience can learn more about you personally through Instagram. I think that's probably one of the better platforms to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. Since you started 2016, I can imagine that you've kind of cultivated this following of like avid, readers and subscribers and whatnot. What are your favorite strategies and ways to engage with your audience?
Well, I mean, I do say, I do think you have to put the time in to respond to comments. I mean, I think that's really important, especially like the first couple of hours of the videos out. Like I go back when I launch a video. I just launched a video earlier today, and I haven't been able to really get to the comments that much. But as soon as this podcast is done, I'm going to spend probably an hour or so in the comments, and then later on today I'll go back and spend some more time, and I'll do that for the first couple of days that a video is live. But then even after a video is out for a few days, I'll just go to the general comment section on YouTube Studio and just respond to new comments, even on videos that sometimes are a couple of years old. And it's funny because people are surprised. They're like, "This video is 4 years old. I didn't think you would respond." But I think that really that gets people to come back, and then I do take the time to respond to all of my emails as best as I can. I think that's really important. And that's the same on Instagram. I actually struggled with that on Instagram for a while, responding to a lot of the comments because their comment sections, it's a little bit different, like I have to be on the
Yeah.
phone. Um, but that is something that I'm forcing myself to get better at because it's the same thing. I think seeing these, there's one guy, I love this guy. He, every single video, he just says, he just says, "My man." And that's all he says on every video. He just leaves a comment, but it's
Hmm.
like MYYYYYMANNN, and he does that on every video, and he's done that for a couple years. And I just respond back the same thing, like "my man." And like there's been a couple of times where I've said like, it's like, "Man, today was a bad day," and just seeing that made me kind of
Yeah.
laugh and gave, like, "Thank you for always being here." And he's always there at every video, and I just love it. I think that type of connection is just, it's super important, and it's what makes this real. Otherwise you're just
Mhm.
sitting by yourself behind a screen, and that
That's
stinks.
awesome. Yeah, that I think that's awesome. I think it does take time to respond to all of
Yeah.
the comments. So it's great that you do take that time for your, audience. As far as content creation itself, what are some struggles? I think a lot of the times when I speak to other creators, they're like, listen, we've kind of hit a plateau. I don't even know what my next topic should be on. And so that's when they kind of shift to a different series. And so I'd love to hear some more about your struggles.
Well, I mean, that's really it. Like, it's, constantly thinking of new ideas that a lot of people are going to always want to watch. And then knowing, keeping it in the back of your mind that not everything is going to be a hit, and when the misses come, you can take your time to look at them and see why the video missed or why it didn't work with the audience. But also know you can't like really, you can't live with that, like with that fail. It has to be a quick learning lesson, but you really need to move on. And I say that to a lot of like new creators when they start. I see a lot of new creators, they come up with one idea. This is their general topic. It's their idea. And then they just keep creating that content. And they've been creating that content for years and years and years. And they're wondering why they haven't grown. And it's because they've never pivoted, you know? And I do think, I always tell people, it's like, and I know this is like, it's so hard to even like think about, but it's like, be the Beatles, like the Beatles didn't just come up with one thing of music that they had a hit with, and then didn't stick with that hit and just stayed with it until they, beat a dead horse. they continually evolved. They were always changing, always, they were willing to risk to try something completely different, you know, and for them it was always a hit. But for YouTube, for content creators, for any content creators, I think that's a really important thing, is to always be willing to evolve, always pivot. Like I tried the sauce recipes for about 6 months, and I realized they really weren't working, and I wanted, my goal was to, it wasn't to do this as a hobby, it was to start YouTube and do it as a living. So I pivoted. And I made a big pivot. I got on camera. I wasn't doing the hands and pans. It wasn't about sauces anymore. My next thing that I did was, it was a show, I called it Lunch Break. And where I would come home from work, and during my hour lunch break, I would try to make whatever I could from scratch, as in that short time period. And that was fun. And some of those videos did well, at the time. And that kind of, I learned some lessons there as far as like being on camera and what people were watching for, and then was able to pivot into the next series. So I think, like for me, I think the struggles have been the same things, where it's like, okay, what's the next idea? I have no idea what to do anymore. I've turned everything into bacon. For the longest time, I was known as like the vegan meat guy. But I kind of personally have fallen out of love with that. And so it was like, how do I keep making this content that I don't love, even though I know some of it works? But it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, I had to take the advice that I always give to people. It's like, I had to pivot. I had to start trying some new things and be willing to, take a hit. It might not work, but keep trying new things until they do. I think that's just the hardest part of content creation, is just always coming up with new ideas,
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Don't be afraid to pivot. I feel
Yeah.
like, a lot of creators they think that they're going to lose some of their following. And, at the end of the day, you might. However, you will reach a broader audience, when you
Yeah.
do pivot, and it's all about trial and error. So,
Well, and the biggest thing, and you can look at this with a lot of like I always want to keep my audience. My audience is very important to me, and the people that follow me, I do believe, are going to follow me through a lot. But some changes they might not, and that's okay. You don't have to be for everyone. But if you look at most content creators' analytics, a majority of their views are coming from new viewers. So it's, if you're always creating content to appease the current viewer, you might not grow, So it's trying to come up with the new ideas that work for your audience and really work for you personally as a creator. You have to love what you're going to create, because if the thing that you just made, if you're like, well, I'm just going to do this video because it's trending, but you don't really like doing it, well, if that works for your channel, well, now you have to kind of recreate that a bunch of times, and that might get really hard, So I think it's, that pivot, falling in line with what you want to do personally. I think it's really important, it's to just try those new things that you want to do, and not be afraid of losing the audience,
yeah.
be more excited about gaining a new audience.
Well, you mentioned, really falling in love with what you do, and then this kind of started with your passion for cooking. And so my question is, do you find content creation more fulfilling, or do you enjoy it more or less than cooking? What would you say falls number one?
Oh man, so I think when I started, it was the passion for cooking was more than the passion for creation. And then that shifted towards the passion of learning. Like I was like, because at the time I was learning new things with cooking. So like that was really exciting. But then I started learning new things about content creation. So that became really exciting. For me, I am the type of person that shifts 100 times. I'll have a new passion. Like right now I'm obsessed with running, but like I'll always have like a new thing that I'm slightly obsessed with. So now I would definitely say it's more about the content creation. It's actually, right now, it's probably more about finding the next thing. Like right now I'm in that kind of pivot period. Like I want the channel to change. I've been kind of public about like, hey, the channel's going to change. There's going to be some new things. I right now don't 100% exactly know what those are going to be, you know?
Hmm.
But I'm really excited about figuring that out. So right now that's kind of the thing. It's probably more passion towards content creation, but just figuring out the new thing.
I know a lot of creators where they just pivot without really telling their audience, but it seems like you did share to the audience, hey, the channel is going to change, just stay tuned. And so, what has been the audience reaction to that so far?
50-50. I mean, I've had a lot of people that have said, they've been around for a long time. They like what I do. There's people that I think that watch it because they enjoy the content. They like my edit. Just they find me fun. But then there's been people who have said, I subscribe to you for the vegan meat. Like I could care less about these healthy recipes that you've been making lately. And that's great. Like that's okay. Like there are a lot of great content creators that make that kind of stuff, like there's tons of content out there for everyone. Um,
Mhm.
so it's sometimes like, I guess you could say it's like a breakup, like it's sad,
Mhm.
but at the same time, people grow and change.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's a big thing. I've been, it's almost, what is it, 9 years now, it's going to be 9 years this year. Um,
Mhm.
and it's like those changes have to happen. Otherwise
Yeah.
it just gets stale and hard to do, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Um, any failed cooking experiments?
Ooh, I mean, there's so many. Um, like,
Top number
uh,
one failed one.
well, like the big one. Now this video was released years ago. I was trying to make like pea protein. Everybody, the biggest like vegan chickens are made with textured pea protein or textured soy protein. And those use like these crazy industrial machineries to make them. They're usually like huge extruders and just things that no one has at home. And I worked for, I mean, months to try to make this stuff at home. And I got
Mhm.
pretty close. And that's what the video was me getting very close to making this. Something that was like edible, but it's still like, I mean, it took like a week to make the single recipe.
Mhm.
And I would say that was probably my biggest failure because I really thought that I was going to nail it. Um, and I just never did. And even I think in the video, if I remember right, because it came out probably 6 years ago or longer actually, I think in the video I said like the full recipe will be following up. Like I am going to nail this. We're gonna like really get it. And I never did. I just never did. And I never actually released like a second video on it because it just got so frustrating. Like it literally like
Yeah.
my wife had to intervene. She was just she was like you've been doing this. I would do it every night, like just like messing with this, and I would film everything. So I just had like hundreds of hours of just failures of me, failed recipes, and it was becoming wasteful and just very frustrating, and I wasn't getting other videos done. So yeah, that was probably like homemade, legitimate like vegan chicken from like protein. That was my biggest failure for sure.
Okay, well, you may not have gotten that one out, but you
Yeah,
have launched your own product,
yeah.
specifically the not steak sauce. And so, what was that process for you? What were the challenges? What was the most exciting aspect? What was the reaction?
Well, I mean that was a blast. So that took a year from like start to finish when we were actually started working on it to release. Um, and that was something my manager and I talked about quite a bit. Was coming up with a product. Um, Really like the sauce was kind of like top of mind because that's just something I enjoy doing. I really like coming up with different sauce recipes, and so that was a big there was a lot of other little products that we discussed, and but the sauce was like number one. And we found a company, Create with Cura, who we partnered up with to kind of help us, and those guys were great because really what they did was they took a lot of the hunting and pecking of trying to find like different manufacturers and just the things that we didn't know. We had to send the sauce to a lab for like nutrition facts and nutrition info. So they did a lot of that stuff. But but really, like, coming up with the recipe, like nailing down the exact flavor. I knew exactly what I wanted. I had a recipe here at home, and then working with, we hired a chef to kind of like tune and tweak it so that way it could be manufacturable, like actually made in like large volumes. And then, that was kind of fun because then, like the chef came back with different things for, well, we're going to want to make this shelf stable, so we need to add this additive. And I was very specific with like, I want it to be shelf stable, but without any crazy ingredients. Like I just want it to be as clean of a label as possible. So it was just a lot of fun doing that. And then coming up with the design, the name, Not Steak Sauce. It was just kind of like, that was a fun little, I don't even know if you'd say oxymoron, but I mean, it's just because it's not a steak sauce, legitimately is what it is. But it could be used as a steak sauce. But the whole thing, I mean, it was a blast from start to finish. And then the reception was fantastic. I mean, we sold out almost immediately of the very first batch that we did. We've gone through a few different iterations. The sauce has stayed the same, but we went from glass bottles to plastic bottles, which that was a fun little like learning lesson. Like the glass bottles originally I wanted just because I felt like it was better for the environment, and I thought it was going to be just better in general. People can reuse them. But then what we found was, I don't know if you want to get this deep into it, but what we found with the glass bottles was like, we had about 10 or 12% breakage. So a lot of them, the bottles would break before they would got to the customer. Sometimes they would break before they got to the distribution center. So there was a lot of product waste, which I don't really like because that's just being wasteful. And then having to reship. So it actually, once you like kind of stepped back and looked at it in a bigger picture, it was almost worse for the environment because of fuel costs and shipping and the amount of times that you'd have to reship just, one box on a flight or something. So we ended up switching to plastic bottles, which has been really great because it's lighter. The bottles weigh, like one plastic bottle weighs like what 4 glass bottles would weigh. So fuel costs for shipping was like much less, which means you're using less fuel. So those were a lot of like fun little learning lessons, which, it's kind of neat to think about because I definitely want to launch more products. That's something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's super insightful. And that leads into my next question. What products can we look out for in the future? If you can give us a little hint or a sneak peek, or, if it's top secret, feel free to say it's top secret.
Yeah.
And then what are some collaborations that you're excited about or you would want to come true in the future?
So, so I'm going to say, all I'm going to say as far as products is I'm looking into the snack food line, and there's going to be some more flavors of the sauce. We definitely, that's something I can talk about. We're working, we just got out another batch of Not Steak Sauce, which should be landing here pretty soon, hopefully, because we're out of stock right now. So a new flavor should hopefully be coming over the next couple of months. We'll see how that goes. But as far as collaborations, the funny thing is I have not done a whole lot of collaborations, and it's something that I really wish that I was better at. I always try to think in my head of like, it's like, how could I do this as a collaboration? One of my friends locally, I don't know if you know Cooking Bomb. She's pretty big on like TikTok and Instagram. She has a 18-year-old jar of pickles that she just keeps going, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. She's known as like the pickle lady. You got to look her up. Her videos are incredible. She does incredible Chinese cooking. Yeah,
she seals it with the water, right?
Yep.
Or the vodka or the water.
Yeah.
I've seen her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild. But she's local here, and we've talked about doing some things. We've hung out a bunch and have made little like quick videos, but never done like a full-on collaboration. So that's something that I would love to do, is actually do a video with her, because I just think it would be a blast. So that's probably the collaboration that I'm most excited about doing. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. That would be amazing. I've actually seen a lot of her like short form videos.
Yeah.
And then she's always just taking out those long pickles. And, for more context, I hate pickles. But every time I see it, I'm like, maybe it's time to try another pickle. And then I try it, and it never works out for me. So hopefully one day.
Have you ever had pickled daikon radish? It's so good. It's like my favorite thing.
So I love that. But the actual, like the
like pickle, like cucumber pickle? Yeah.
Yeah. But every time I see someone eat it, it looks so delicious. So I'm like,
Yeah.
let me have a bite, and then I regret it. So
Yeah. Oh
who
no.
knows? One day,
One day you
maybe the
might
next
find one that you
time.
like. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, I really hope to see that collaboration come true.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. What are some other YouTube channels that you subscribe to or watch?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. So, for food, I always watch Merle O'Neill.
Mhm.
She's fantastic. Um, I watch Philip DeFranco every day. I've been
Mhm.
watching him for years. He's a, OG YouTuber. And then two of my new ones that I've been really getting into is there's a girl, I can't think of her name, but the channel's called Science of Self Care.
Mhm.
She tests a lot of a lot of the current like health products, like the health trends, like red light therapy and vibration plates. I walked 30,000 steps a day, like those things I've been really into lately. And Shervin shares, he's another guy. He does a lot of similar stuff. He tests the ice baths and the red light stuff, and those are all things that lately I've been really into, embarrassingly, but I enjoy it. So those videos have been a lot of fun.
I'm really into that too. I've been seeing so much about red light therapy. I
Yeah.
actually have like a machine for red light
Yeah.
therapy. And then the vibration plates, I've been seeing mixed reviews. Do you recommend it or what's your thoughts
So
on it?
so same thing. I have a full door red light panel over here. I stand in front of every day. I'm obsessed. But the vibration plate, I personally like it. I
Mm,
feel good after I get off of it. Your whole body kind of feels a little tingly, I guess.
mm,
And I know for me, because I'm running so much now, it it kind of like last night I had a long run, and then today I have an 8 mile run. And I know after that I'm going to be a little achy. I'm in my mid 40s, so it's I started kind of late with this, so I will say like it does kind of take away the aches.
mm.
So I enjoy it. I recommend it. I think everybody has to kind of like try it and see how they feel. But I definitely like it.
Awesome. Okay, then you've just sold me and I'm
Yeah.
gonna get one and I'll let you know personally
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
like
Let
it
me
or
know.
not.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
start getting dizzy, I'm gonna be like, Mark told me to do this.
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
no, no.
yep.
There's that the science of self care. She has a really great video on vibration plates. She was the one that it was like I watched that video. I got influenced. Like I watched that video and I was like, oh man, that sounds
Hmm.
exactly up my alley. I got to try this. And then I went to a friend's house that had one and I got on it and I was like, oh, this really does feel good. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Okay, I will check it out.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to sharing, vegan recipes, healthy food content, you've also been very transparent about your health and weight loss journey online. And
Yeah.
so, how do you feel that has kind of shifted your content and audience across the years?
Man, I mean, just I would say lately it's shifted it just massively. I've made a pretty big that's been the big change, and now figuring out where it's going to go from here. Um, but I released, I think it was 2 years ago or maybe a year and a half ago, I released my weight loss video because I was getting a lot of questions. I lost at the time, it was like 100 pounds. And, I started getting a lot of comments about people, saying I took the jab or whatever. And so I was
Mm,
just like, I want to release exactly what I did because it really was a slow process. It was a slow change. And really all I did was just change my diet and started moving more. Um, and I think because I changed my diet, I wasn't, and I think that's where kind of like the excitement for the vegan meat kind of fell away from me. I stopped
mhm,
eating a lot of like the plant-based meats. I stopped eating a lot of processed foods. I wasn't super interested in the next vegan burger anymore, um, or like whatever the newest like vegan cheese was. And really I just at home I was just eating whole fruits and vegetables just pretty much nonstop. And so the content kind of started quietly going that direction, and now since the that video has been released about my weight loss, I kind of started making it a little bit more public, just obvious, like this is what's going to be
mhm.
happening. I'm not making these super processed things anymore. So it's been a dramatic change, and it's really the change that I want the channel to go to. I kind of feel better about it. I feel like I'm
Mm.
releasing better things into the world. Um, and I'm really excited about where that's going to go, like how far can I take that, because I do want the channel to start not only just being about like the health, but like what else can we learn from eating these specific foods, you know?
Mhm. What's your advice on how to be transparent and vulnerable while also protecting, your mental health?
I think, I do think that you have to decide personally what is yours, not
Mhm.
everything needs to be public. And I feel like sometimes people feel like it has to be like everything needs to be like owned by the public, which, you're not, you're a person, you get to be your own person. You get to decide what's shared and what's not shared. Um, I think being transparent, about as many things as you're comfortable with is a good thing. But I mean, that's really a hard question. It's tough because everybody kind of expects, but the feeling of that expectation is something that I would say is in your head. I get a lot of friends that will say, people with millions of subscribers, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, the comments, these people are saying these horrible things," and then you read, and it's like, "No, you have 1,000 really great comments, and like three of them are like pinpointed towards this like negative thing." And I understand that the negative comment is the one that feels the loudest, but that's just truly a thing that you're feeling internally. And learning how to just kind of like shut that off and know that you don't have to do anything. You don't really owe anything specific of yourself. It's your channel, it's your content. It should be fun to create a community, and it should feel good to create a community. But you also have to kind of know that there's going to be people, anytime you create a community of like-minded people, there's going to be another community of like-minded people that don't like those like-minded people. And you
Mhm.
don't have to please these people either. So I think just knowing, what's personally yours, and knowing that
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, nothing's owed to the world.
Yeah, I think it's important that you said that, and it's important for people to hear that because, like you said, you can have 100 nice comments and then just that one to fixate on that. It's difficult not to,
It's really
right?
hard. Yeah.
But
Oh yeah, for
yeah.
sure. I mean, that was the hardest thing for me with Facebook. My Facebook, and I fell into that trap, and it caused a lot of stress. Like it was really hard for me, because Facebook, they never really created a community. And I grew early on Facebook through Facebook's like Launchpad program, where Facebook just put a bunch of money into my channel, into my page, and grew it through ads. I didn't really have any
Mhm.
part of it. They just said, "This is what we're going to do." And at the time it felt amazing because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm growing hundreds of thousands of followers." But because it was ad driven, there was way more people seeing the content that just were not interested in it at all.
Mhm.
And it created rage bait. And that's what grew the page, was that rage bait. All of those people getting mad, that I was making vegan meat. And I fell into that trap of responding. I mean, I'd be up at night just sitting there responding to these people like just angrily, and people would stop me. I remember like going to a
Mhm.
restaurant, and like somebody was just like, "Hey man, I saw your comments on Facebook. That was great the way you bashed those." And I was like, "Oh man, it was embarrassing to me." Like I was like, "I'm glad that you love that, but I don't like that about myself."
Mhm.
So I had to stop for a moment and just say, "Okay, like wait a minute, this isn't important. I'm never going to get those people to understand.
Mhm.
Uh, I need to make content for the people that want to understand it, and that's what I need to focus on and worry about." So just kind of setting that aside and like not worrying about that. I mean, it's been, my mental health has completely changed. Just kind of dropping that and realizing that the way that platform runs or ran, I don't know specifically now, but the way that it ran was really just egging people on, and
Mhm.
that wasn't a lot of fun. Uh, but it was good, just kind of stepping back and saying like, I don't have to respond to these people. Like there's no requirement. There's nothing that makes that is like making me do this.
That's awesome. You mentioned running multiple times
Yeah,
throughout the
yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
I'm
I'm
tr-
obsessed.
I'm tracking. I'm tracking your running in the Boston Marathon on April 21st. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
How long have you been training for that?
So the official marathon build started January 1st, but I ran a half marathon December 22nd. So I trained for that for about 2 months prior. I've been running for about 2 years. Really kind of building into like long distance running. That's something I really enjoy. It just feels kind of good to get into like a groove and just go for a while. Like I said, today I have an 8 mile run pretty much as soon as we're done with the podcast. But yeah, the official build started in January, and it's been like January 1st, and it's been a blast. It's been a lot. My wife and I, we traveled to Ohio, and it was like 10 degrees, and so I had to do a 12 mile run on a treadmill, which that was pretty miserable. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun. The marathon build. And I actually just got accepted into the Chicago Marathon. So I'm going to be running that this year as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
When is that?
That's in October. I think it's October 13th. So literally as soon as my Boston Marathon build is done, I'm going to take about a week off and then start the Chicago Marathon build. So really
I
excited.
commend you for that. Long distance running is not for me. 12 miles on the treadmill, that sounds like my torture. So
It was pretty bad.
yeah. What do you listen to when you're running?
So, like honestly, when I'm outside, I used to listen to headphones. Now, a lot of the times I just go free. I'm in my head. That's been a big change for me. If I'm not like, if I'm just having like a day or something, I listen to Smartless, the podcast. I love that podcast. If I'm listening to music, it's usually going to be like the Postal Service or something. I love the Postal Service. Anything Ben Gibbard. That's kind of my thing.
Awesome. Going back to your content, what's your favorite video you've ever published, and what's your least favorite video?
Okay, my favorite video is probably like the two recent ones would be my weight loss video. That felt very personal. I really enjoyed getting that out. That was that video took me, it was literally a couple months of like, I filmed it and I actually like trashed the entire thing. And then I recovered it from the trash and then started editing it. Like it was a back and forth. I almost didn't put it out, but I wanted to get like that full, like the story, and not in a, this is how you lose 100 pounds, just this is what happened to me and why I did it. So that video was really great. That felt really good for me. And then recently I did the one for the Boston Marathon, the release of that, where I said things are going to change. That was that felt like a good turning point for me. That was, I love that video because I feel like it really connected with a lot of people, because the whole point of the marathon builds is I was trying to find a way to be able to give more, do things for charities, interact with my community more. And, originally I was thinking of like ways that I can do profit sharing with like the company with like Not Steak Sauce, but there's like, so the margins are so thin. It just didn't feel like I was going to be giving a lot. And I know with a lot of these major marathons, you can run for charities, and be a part of charity teams and raise money. So that was the whole purpose. Like I never imagined in my head I was going to be a marathon runner, but I thought if I can run all 6 world majors over the next couple of years, maybe hopefully before I'm 50, then I can raise a bunch of money for a bunch of different charities and do it while running using my platform. So that video for me was huge because that one video raised close to $10,000 for the team that I'm running on, which is for food insecurities for Team Spoonfuls. And so that was super important to me. And that video coming out, it felt amazing. The response was incredible. It wasn't my biggest viewed video at all. I mean, it only got maybe like 30, 40,000 views, but I think like the response to it was it was epic. It was unbelievable.
Awesome. Well, definitely along with the Media Mobilize team, we're going to be rooting for you at the
Thank you
Boston
so
Marathon,
much.
the Chicago Marathon. We're going to be tracking all the marathons you do.
Thank you.
So that's amazing. And I really just stand for the cause, behind it. So,
Okay.
okay, now it's time for some fun and exclusive insight into your life with some rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
I'm going to shoot out some questions, just whatever pops up in your head. So favorite
Okay.
travel spot?
New York City. Love New York.
Favorite movies?
Old school, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future. I love those movies. Oh, The Shining. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time.
That scarred me when I watched it. Just wanted to let you know that. And every
I know a
time
lot of
I
people.
see, when I see elevators, I still to this day think about it. So, favorite books?
Favorite books. So there's a book called Letting Go. It's by Dr. David Hawkins. It's an incredible book. It's a tough read, but it's a very inspirational book as far as learning how to control your emotions. I love that book.
Awesome. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah.
What would you choose as your last meal?
There's a little vegan restaurant in Orlando here called Earthy Picks, and they make this burrito. It's just like lentils and quinoa and mushrooms and tofu, and it's just like it is so good. Everybody, I don't care who you are, people that just if you love brisket barbecue or the biggest meat eaters I've taken to this restaurant, and we have had to go back multiple times. I could eat this burrito every single day. It is that good.
Uh, Sweet or salty?
Sweet and salty. I love salted sweets. I mean, that's like my favorite thing. Like throw
You have to
salt
choose
on ice
one.
cream. No, uh, sweet, sweet, sweet. I probably sweet.
Okay, what's your favorite sweet treat?
Ice cream,
What flavor?
chocolate,
Are you a
covered with
mint
salt.
chocolate chip type of guy? You
No,
like
no,
mint?
no. No mint, no mint, no. I mean, I do, I used to love those like growing up as a kid, the Andes. It was like the
Love it.
mint. Oh, I loved those things. I still like those, but I mean, I haven't had one in years. But like that like combination of mint and chocolate. But otherwise, like if I'm just getting ice cream, I just want like the like deep chocolate. I actually keep like as far as like just chocolate in general, I have like a little crack of like 80% dark chocolate pretty much every night, just almost every night. It's always in the freezer. I just boop a little break before bed. I love it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that rounds out our rapid fire questions. Thanks so much for answering. And then to round out our podcast, I would like to share with the audience that Mark will be speaking at our creator conference. Media Mobilize is hosting that on May 15th, Thursday at downtown San Francisco. We definitely have a great lineup of creators, publication sponsors, including Mark attending. So check out the conference at creatorcareercon.com. Definitely we'll have the link in the description. Mark, are you excited for the
Oh,
conference?
I can't wait. I mean, I am super stoked. I'm excited. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I can't wait for it.
Of course. No, thank you so much for attending. I'm really excited
Yeah,
to have you. Thank you again, Mark, for joining us today at the podcast. I really think what you've done with your channel and content is so inspiring. Like Mark said, folks, you got to pivot. You have to have confidence. You have to not be afraid to pivot. I'm excited to see your continued growth this year. Thanks
thank
again.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks.